we are going to be looking at the definitions of words. So thank you so much for joining me, whether you're here live with me or whether you're catching up on a video replay because you've subscribed to attend the event and you're on the email list, or whether you're watching over on YouTube. And I have to say, I'm quite impressed that my YouTube channel has not been taken down for quite some time. So I'm on to a winner, I think. Woohoo! So anyway, I'm Dawn. As you can tell, I like to have a bit of fun. We write about serious issues over here at DBI, but we do like to have a lot of fun. And I have a rule: if it's not fun, why are we doing it? I'm also an author, coach, developmental editor. Not many people know that about me, and a boutique publisher. So yes. This week, in week 7 of this second series of free content and coaching that I like to give to you all and insights, we're going to be identifying and navigating the legal and ethical boundaries. And aren't they such a quagmire? And depending on which part of the world you're in, will depend very much on what freedom of speech and the legalities are. It will also depend on what kind of government and political systems that you live in, as well as kinship systems. I'm promising not to go too much down the rabbit hole with kinship systems and anthropology, but you know, they are two of my very favorite subjects. So we're going to be looking at how we handle sensitive information and the backlash, liability, and the unnecessary harm. Because when we do write books of power, whether we're even writing them as a piece of fiction, I'm going to be talking about a Jodi Picoult book. And let me just make a note of that so I don't forget. And I'm looking at different things that we can talk about, whether they're fiction or non-fiction, and how we want is one better than the other. Those of you who've seen other recordings or have been in attendance at other ones, you might hear some overlap, but it's always good because you're hearing it in a different context. So please bear with me. And if you've got any questions, please do put them in the comments below or put them in the chat, and I'll do my very best to answer them for you. So step 1, I have to say this disclaimer, this is not legal advice. I might have a legal mind. I might have studied quite a number of different facets of law, but you have to know the laws in your region. You also need to know that you need to make sure that, you also need to know that anything that I say here today is a guide. And it's dependent on my own experience, the books that I've written, the laws that I know, but it's down to you. The responsibility is on you to make sure that where you are in the world and the subjects that you're writing about, that you actually get some really good legal advice if you need to. It's always good to get legal advice anyway on the publishing contracts that you have, and like copyright, that's one thing that you're going to need to know about. But again, it's about making sure that you understand fully that I'm not a lawyer. Gosh, I don't think I could cope with that. I mean, I work long hours, but goodness gracious. But have a look at public records. You will tend to find there are a lot of legal guidelines that you can get on a lot of author websites. So the Society of Authors, you might want to look out the Alliance of Independent Authors. You've got the Authors Guild in the States. There are lots of legal reps out there, part of some of these organizations that I highly recommend you join. I'm a member of the International Independent Publishers Guild. I'm a member of the Society of Authors and the Royal Society of Literature and Royal Society of Arts. And so you do have people in those networks. So a lot of what I share with you, I do check with those organizations first and foremost. The other thing that you might want to look at is probably going down to your local library, because they have such a wealth of knowledge there that might be able to help you. Or if you go along to your local university and you're looking at writing a book about certain things, you've got, whether it's fiction or non-fiction, there will be students in the law department that are looking for real life projects. So it might be that they might have an internship that you, with possibly with some funding, where they can help you with some study or some research. It might be that they'll be able to check certain things for you. They might be able to look over some of the legislation and how that applies. So there are so many resources out there for us. Universities, they have untapped potential. So many people don't use the university students. They're always looking for mentoring or like I say, internships, work experience. And some of these students, they really need it for their theses. So do consider working with the relevant departments. So if it's history, whether it is social sciences, like I said, law, you know, just take a look, go and approach a local university. They really are a blessing. I know that Cardiff University and Oxford have been absolutely brilliant for myself. The other thing that you might need to be looking into, and I know that I've mentioned this previously in a different weekly moment. I think it was in the first series and early on in this series, is make sure that you've got your model release forms. So it might be that there's model release forms to share information within the book. It might be a model release form like you're featuring, it's all about that person. So it could be that you're using case studies. It could be that you're using some of their intellectual property. It could be a whole number of things. So make sure that you have those. And if you do need a sample of those, you can always reach out to me and I'll be more than happy to get that emailed over to you. In fact, actually, Tai, if you can make a note of that, that would be great. Tai is my wonderful VA who supports me through this, and we can get you that sent out as an addition if you wish to. Okay, so might actually put it on the website. Thinking out loud. Welcome to the world of an author. We're writing all the time, a lot of the time by ourselves. We have conversations with ourselves. It's not that we're going a bit crazy, although sometimes we feel like it, but it just means that sometimes we're thinking things through and we're doing it out loud. So again, looking at what I just said about being a bit crazy, is some of the words that we're using are and talking about a group of people, authors talking out loud, they're going a bit crazy. Is that going to be something that somebody takes offense to and then decides to whack a slander case or defamation, or we're in that kind of world now. But again, I mean, I'm being a bit playful around this at the moment. But again, if you are going to be using different people's stories, make sure that what you've got their citations. If it's pieces of research that some of the students that you've done, that you've been working with, make sure that you get their referencing, that you're not just copy pasting. I did work with a gentleman once who just copied content from other websites or other people's work and just copy pasted, and I was like, can't publish you, sorry, and he wasn't willing to change it because other people had done it. It's great to reference, it's great to put citations because you're giving exposure to the other people and you bring awareness to their research, but just make sure that you do it ethically, that you do, and you also ask their permission, whether it is through a model release form, whether it is from a simple email, once you've got it in writing. And you also might find that I remember when we did the menopause book, The Potent Power of Menopause, we reached out to Anita Diamond, who wrote The Red Tent. She was very happy for us to use some of the content in there, but we needed to go through her publisher. Publisher was a little bit late getting back to us. We just referenced. We didn't actually use the exact citation. So it might be something that you want to do there. Plus, Anita Diamond also know now about my book. So happy days, a little bit of exposure there. Okay, so when you are sharing other people's, it might be that they're very keen for you to share their story, but just not their name. And I don't know if any of you also do this, but sometimes when I am signing, I want to book a meeting with somebody, and then you see their booking form, you're like, do I really want to book up to that and then subscribe to all of that? One of the things I do is make sure that nobody whenever they sign up for a meeting with me, they're not actually signing up to my email list. You only sign up to my email list if you truly want to. And again, it's when you're doing, I don't know where I was going on that thread. Oh yeah, so when you're signing up to the email, sometimes I add my middle name and a friend's surname, and I make up an email address so people can't send me stuff. But you might want to use a play on the name. I know that in one of my clients' books, oh my God, I'm so excited for this book to be released. We've been talking about it this morning. I'm so excited. There are some plays on names, but again, even though this author is actually using a name all mixed up and a play on a nickname for his friend, he still wanted to get permission. So again, it's like, where are you going? Because some of the characters' behaviors, we thought it best to get a bit of permission, because some of the people in the author's friendship group might have actually identified him, even though the name was different. So, make sure that you get that covered. Again, look at disclaimers. Might sound really dull and boring, but you can have some fun with disclaimers. I know I've had some fun with disclaimers, and you just, when you're writing them, I mean, we've got them as standard. So if you're wanting those as well, then we can get those sent out to you. I do have an author essentials bundle that you can actually purchase. I think it's like for £55. It's got like your press release, it's got your bio, your book descriptions, disclaimers, and things like that. So if that's something that you're looking for, then I can make sure that that's available to you. And looking at the trigger warnings, because people get triggered by a lot. A lot of us are living through a lot of really challenging things right now. And although people like myself know that we get triggered, and it's an opportunity for us to look deep inside ourselves and go, oh, why is that triggering me? Interesting. Let me do a deep dive. There are some people go, that really triggered me. I'm going to blame you now, and I'm going to take you to court, and I'm going to be angry. And, they don't look inside of themselves, because probably they've never been taught or had that modeled to them, or the trigger has traumatized them to such a degree that they're in that darkness. So, it's not right or it's not wrong. It just is the way it is. And we just have to be very mindful of that. The other thing that you don't really have to go into too much detail. So, for example, if you're watching something, I don't know, on Netflix, or you go to the cinema, it puts at the top of the screen sexual references, drug misuse, smoking. I saw the other week. I was like, what? And there was like maybe suicide references. So again, like you can put those in the book descriptions. You can even make your book aged 18 and over. But again, if you need some examples of that, then I'd be more than happy to share them with you. Because, we need to protect ourselves. And it seems to have been a pendulum swing, where we used to be able to have a freedom of speech, and that meant that we were all in a space where we could pretty much say what we were thinking. Now we're getting people police our thoughts, which is really quite interesting, especially as I read one of these books to my children. I think it was like the Berserk series, about nanotechnology being inserted into people, as government. I mean, they're science fiction, or are they? About this nanotech being able to read people's thoughts, and goodness, it really freaked me out. They loved it, so mother's duty. But again, what is freedom of speech? Is it something that's a freedom of speech within your country or within your culture, but in another country it's not so much? I know that in one lady's book, I spoke with her, I think at the end of last year. She was writing a book about China, and there were some elements in there, I think about Tibet and Korea. And there were certain things that really, I knew that if she'd published them if I was working with her on publishing in China, I'd have said, well, maybe you don't want to keep this. Maybe you want to actually use this as an article and publish it internationally to promote your book. Again, it's about making sure that you understand the political subtleties and legal having a bit of a, I was going to say brain fart. I've just said it. Hey, freedom of speech, right? Making sure that we're looking at, certain things. I remember being in an Uber recently, and this Uber driver had a massive complaint made against her because she'd said, "You guys, how are you guys getting on?" And somebody reported her for being for not acknowledging or for presuming the gender of the two men that were in her taxi. We all know that "you guys" or "hi guys" is a figure of speech, but some people now are taking that to the extreme and making reports. We don't know why people go to that extent, but they do. So again, make sure that you're aware of how people are choosing to be offended, because offensiveness. Ricky Gervais, love him. He made a really great short video interview that said, people do choose to take offense. Something is not offensive, but someone is choosing to take offense. And it's something that we do, and it is a bit of a luxury, because as somebody who's sailed around the world and lived in multiple countries, 44 in counting, there are some countries where I've been to where the only thing people are really thinking about is where they're getting their food from. Are they going to be free from being having bombs dropped on them, or the government invading their homes? So when you're living with those real life situations, and we've got people who are choosing to be offended about certain things, we have to go, maybe choosing to be offended is a bit of a luxury. So again, when we're looking at this lady in the Uber saying, "Hi guys, how was your weekend?" or whatever it was she said, what was the intention behind the word? Was she really wanting to misgender these people, or was she just being friendly and using a figure of speech? And again, bringing it back, what are the definitions of the words that we're using? Are we being exact? So for example, here in Britain, people are very tolerant, but are they accepting? And when we make those distinctions, because we go, "Oh, the British are a very tolerant nation." Tolerant, possibly. Accepting, probably not so much. So again, but also understand the community you're in. I know that a lot of people find my forthrightness and my cheeky sense of humor, they don't really like it. Other people can't get enough of it. We've got to be able to find, our people and the definitions of the words we use. The British are known to have a bit of a humour that involves a lot of innuendo. But if we're in a group of people that are, say, of a more conservative culture, they might not like the innuendo. You might not want to be discussing innuendo with your parents. So again, look at the company you're keeping, and making sure that you're choosing the right words, or you're being aware of the words that you're using. Because when you write them, I always find it's a lot of fun to play with synonyms. I know I'm a bit of a word geek. Sometimes when I'm writing, I'm like, "Oh, what's another word for this?" And then I get down the rabbit hole of a dictionary. I love reading dictionaries, and books on homophones and homonyms and homographs. And some people don't even know about those three things. And, but that's okay. I do. And I love reading about them. um, they're fascinating. Like, and you go, "Oh my God, I didn't even know that word existed. Oh, I really didn't know that. Oh, that's fascinating." So again, making sure you're choosing the exact word, because the subtlety, to use my youngest son's name, his name is Nasser. Nasser means the one to bring about victory. Nasr is victorious. And Nassar is the victorious one. And when people don't get the name correct, or they're changing his name, And to give you another example, my name in Arabic is Fajr. If you say Fajr, my name Fajr, it means sunrise. If you say Fajr, it means whore. So there is a very subtle difference in the spelling and the pronunciation, but a very different meaning. So again, make sure you're choosing your words exactly, and don't just write something to prove a point. Don't, this is ego. We don't want to be in that space, because when we're doing something to prove a point, but it's not coming from a good intention, then it can lead us into a lot of hot water, which is great if you're a woman and you love a bath, but not so great if you're a Wim Hofer. I'm definitely not a Wim Hofer. Okay, now this bit, we're going to come into the ethics. We're going to be looking at the fact that I know that some of my posts and some of my books and articles, they really challenge people. And the reason I know this is because my DMs or my emails, I get people go, oh my God, I absolutely loved your post, but I could not post. I could not respond publicly. Or, my God, you challenged the hell out of me, Dawn. Keep doing it. I'm learning so much from following you. Don't expect me to engage publicly, though. Because the thing is, when we challenge certain ideas, we're challenging a status quo, we're rocking the boat, but we're also challenging the mediocrity that is being perpetrated throughout the education system. And what we are seeing in certain schools, let's use schools. What we're seeing in certain schools at the moment, we're seeing a lot of parents take their children out of school because of the ideologies and the narratives that are being fed through, whether that is from a religious point of view or from a gender point of view, or that there's not enough what do they call them? Outward bound trips. One of the things that I realized when I took my children from a private school environment into a state school environment is that they lost their outward bound and their school trips, which was great for me because it's like, have car, will travel. Come on, boys, let's get in the car and go for a wild camping weekend. But for some parents, that the loss of the outward bound trips and the school trips has actually had a really detrimental effect on the children, because those children, the parents were really relying on the school to be able to take them out on educational excursions, because the parents couldn't do that because they didn't have a car, there was poverty, or whatever reason. So removing those from the state schools was really quite interesting here in Britain. I don't know what it was like in different parts of the world, but again, it's like, how does what is ethical in, like, just in the education system? Excursions are great, and they're seen as something that's character building. It builds independence, it builds trust and confidence and competence, and that's how the private schools see outward bounds. But in the state school, it's not seen as something that the teachers are allowed to do. It's not ethical. They don't see that it's all of these other things, because you know what, if something goes wrong, yeah, well, what if something does go wrong? What if they do fall and break their arm? Well, you know, they're going to get a plaster cast and all their friends are going to want to write on it. So that's probably the worst that can happen. Again, looking at the culture, whether that is a micro culture within a nation culture, whether it's a generational culture, whether it's a music, art, or whether it's a business culture. These are things that we need to be looking at, because again, the change of words, or maybe the religion, they actually really do play a very big part in what we're talking about, what we're writing about. So for example, when we had the anti-terrorism laws here in Britain, implemented after the 7/7 bombings, what that actually became was terrorism for a lot of people that were of the Muslim, Sikh, Hindu faith, but also people who didn't have a faith, but they just had a brown face. So again, looking at the culture, what is it that we're challenging? What is it that we're writing about? Because this is something, this next bit, about being a misfit. Now, I was like, oh, that's a really interesting word, because so many of us say, you know, we feel like a round peg in a square hole, or a square peg in a round hole, or we just don't feel like we belong here, or that we were born in the wrong day. I mean, I know I've said so many times, I just don't fit into this world. I don't feel that I belong anywhere. And I don't feel that, you know, I don't feel there's a place for me in the world sometimes. And it's because everything feels so alien. And I don't know whether that's because I've lived in 44 different countries, or because I'm someone who goes down the rabbit hole, or because I just sit back and watch. And because I'm willing to challenge everything. I want to make sure that the information that I've got, and the things that I'm doing are ethical, that they're right, and that they're causing the least amount of harm to everybody as well as myself. And so look at what you're doing, what you're writing, how you're thinking, and how does it fit? Now, one of the things I wanted to address with the Jodi Picoult book was her book, My Sister's Keeper. Because this, what she actually did was she challenged the idea of how one baby could be born, so that basically this child was harvested of all of the stem cells and the organs and bits and pieces to keep another sister alive. And it was such a powerful book when it was released, and it challenged so much. So I've got really itchy eye. And So again, it was like, what is the ethics of that? And if Jodi had written that as a piece of non-fiction, gosh, it would have probably been banned. But because she wrote it as fiction, she got away with a lot. Elif Shafak says the same. There's a lot of things that she writes about that she can actually go and really explore, because it is fictional, it's hypothetical. But is it hypothetical? What can you get away with your book? Because one of the other things that you've got to look at when you see a book like My Sister's Keeper, is if there is a hospital, if you're putting it in a setting, so for example, I don't know, let's just say somewhere in the States, Atlanta. I say Atlanta like that because I've got a friend from Atlanta. And if you're writing about something happening in, say, a hospital or a school, and they're a real place, and are you actually going to be damaging that reputation? Are you able to handle the sensitive information of the layout of the hospital, let's say? So if you're doing, or the layout of, say, a prison or of a town, or of a school, because it's all well and good as thinking of sensitive information in ways that are people's identity, credit card details, their health records, etc., etc. But what about the schematics of a town or a building where people gather and congregate? How are you going to handle that information? Are you going to be looking at, like, you're exposing government corruption, or you're exposing corporate manslaughter, let's say? Are you going to be saying, you know, they're going through this building, and, you know, we've all seen these movies like Prison Break, or, you know, there's a bank robbery happening, and, you know, people have got their schematics from the local library or the council offices, or they've gone down to the water board. I mean, who doesn't want to be Aaron Brockovich? And I mean, I do think that, you know, I could make a very good Aaron Brockovich. Not so much in the high heels. I think I'd break my neck and need a neck brace. But again, that handling of sensitive information, how are you getting it? How are you presenting it? Are you causing problems for others? And are you going to need to shred your information? Because as we saw in films such as Aaron Brockovich, and you know, there are other films where you had the movie with Mark, I hope I don't pronounce his name wrong, Mark Ruffalo. Apologies if I've pronounced that name incorrectly, where he's talking about the Teflon issue and how people are being poisoned. And you've got all these boxes, like lawyers are going to drown you in content. They're going to drown you in law, especially the big ones. And you might want to actually put some anti-tracking software for some of the stuff that you're learning. You might want to shred everything, get NDAs. I put to here, you know, make sure that you've got if any software and devices. Now I have an anti-tracking firewall with a VPN, so people can't actually get into my laptop. Because I do hold some sensitive information on there, client records, you know, the stuff that's in the cloud. Are you going to be using Dropbox, which has got servers on 3 different continents? Are you going to be using Google Docs? You know, where are your passwords? Are you using things like LastPass to store all of your passwords? What information can be leaked? Are you just throwing your documents in the bin? Shredding documents, they can actually now be put back together. So again, be very, very careful on that. And when you're writing, I don't do shorthand. Although if some people read my notes when I'm really writing, they might think that that might be shorthand on acid doing the Zumba. But again, make sure that if you are going to be writing something down, if you need to protect it, is there a code that you can use? And we all have inventory codes in maybe in our products or our services that we sell. So is there a coding system that you can use? It's like, you know, the file names that you use, can you come up with something that would work? Again, are you storing it with Solicitor? And are they helping to guide you through the content that you're going to be putting out there? Because again, it really is so important, even if you're writing fiction, because you know, people might know that it's fiction, but the best fiction is always based on truth. Always. And again, if you're writing about something commercial, are you sharing something or giving an idea about a new piece of technology, whether that is like electrical technology or, you know, a new system or process or a product? Are you giving away aspects which will then actually have somebody's patent or trademarks violated, or someone will go, oh, actually I know what that is, and then they report you, and then it's like, well, actually you've given that away and now we can't use it, or you might end up in hot water. You don't really know what's going to go on, but just make sure you check out patents and trademarks as well. So I needed some tea. So step 5 today is name changes and identifying details. I just mentioned it a little bit ago about, you know, if you've got a friend, you might mix up their name and put in a few of their personalities, and it might be a bit playful. Like for example, when I wrote Faith, I am going to turn around. When I wrote Faith, I love this book. It really, I do love it. It was very much a labor of love, but there was a lot of information in here, like historical information about the people from Pakistan when they came over to Britain, and how they helped a lot of they helped Britain win the war. But there was a character in here, and her name I called, and I'm going to like the name of this, the sister of Faith, I named her Shyster, because it's a very strong Pakistani name, or Shyster, and I know some people will think of the German word, those of us here in Britain, but the reason why I chose the name Shyster was because my friend, she is a formidable woman. You don't mess with her. I love her so much, and I'm afraid of her. Those of you who know me or have been around in my space for a while, you'd think, my God, really? Dawn's afraid of her? Yes. When she looks at me and tells me to sit down and be quiet, I sit down, I'll be quiet, and I cross my legs and I just wait to be told. She's adorable. I love her. And if she's listening to this, she'll probably be laughing her head off. But again, like, you can do name changes, you can use identifying details, but make sure that when you're doing it, the person is okay with it. Know your people. And again, look at regionalization, because in the Sequel series, like with Layla and with Pandora and Alpha, one of the things I had to do is I had to look at the identifying factors of their story and find out where else in the world these events were happening. Where were these cultural practices happening? Also, what was the climate like? What was the terrain like? So I had to really do a lot of research and go, actually, I can't, if I write the book from this space, it's going to be, the person's going to be identified. But if I can find a country that this is happening in, I can base the story there. So even though they're true life stories in the Sacral series, they are they're known as creative non-fiction, or they've been written as fiction. Because again, I've had to change certain things so that it wasn't true. And it's very difficult because when you know that you need to write the true life story, but you're having to change location, or you're changing names, or you're changing this, you can't call it non-fiction, you can't call it true life. So but yeah, Sacral series. Faith, leaving religion to save your soul. Little plug there. But again, looking at, if you're naming a school, like I said a few moments ago, are you going to cause problems for that school? Are you going to be causing problems for that hospital? Are you going to, and not just now, but when you think that books live a long time, you know, what is true for us now, the book might actually, this book is going to be in circulation forever. And someone might pick it up in 10, 20 years time. And they might go to that school. You might have actually had a hospital, which is a normal run-of-the-mill hospital, but you might have actually changed it into what they call a mental asylum, and set the story back in 1950s, 1940s, where women, you know, they're a bit hysterical just because they're emotional and going through the menopause. You know, are the people that are living then going to know, well, oh my God, you know, goodness gracious, it was a mental hospital. Did you not know it was there? And again, Chinese whispers. Somebody might have read the book and known that it wasn't real. But when someone's telling someone else about the book, and then someone else hears it, and Chinese whispers. Look at damage limitation and the story association. You know, these things matter. They really do. Now, the other thing that we need to look at, and I've got a quote here from Professor Richard Feynman, and I don't know if any of you have come across this gentleman, but he said something, a quote, the problem is not people being uneducated. The problem is that people are educated just enough to believe what they have been taught, not educated enough to question anything from what they have been taught. Now, the reason why I bring that up now is because obviously we're looking at people taking offense and as challenging the status quo, and as writing about things and making sure our words are exact, because we do live in quite a litigious world. Instead of people working it through or being patient or showing a level of maturity, they go and they get the lawyers involved. There are certain countries around the world, I mean, I am going to name the US, it is very litigious. And we're seeing that happen here in Britain. We're seeing it happen in Canada. We're seeing it happen in other, where people would rather go down the legal route rather than just taking a breath, saying, you know, let's just figure this out. Everything happens for a reason. And again, when we're looking at the education of things, do we know that this person doesn't come from a litigious culture? The person who wrote the book, or the person who we're using research from, are we exposing or taking advantage of that? Are we making sweeping statements, like I was saying, slander and defamation of maybe tribal councils, because there are still a lot of cultures around the world that will be having what we call tribal councils with the elder, and they will be there and they will be making the decision. But those of us, we've seen it a lot with colonialization. You know, the British go in and they change the way the belief systems are, they change the architecture. And those of you who are not aware, and I found this out from one of my students that I mentor, like the changing of architecture by the British in certain parts of the world is actually costing people their lives. in a multitude of ways, because the colonial houses haven't been designed in a way that is conducive to the climate and the terrain. And you just think, oh my gosh, I'm reading a book at the moment about it's called Born to Witness, and it's about a Black guy who grew up in Nazi Germany. Fascinating book. Mind-blowing. Would like some of the things I'm like, oh, and then we can still see history repeating itself. Same meat, different gravy. So again, are you writing certain things that's going to give a backlash to your idea? But if you are, make sure you get your insurances sorted out, because especially in the States, because a lot of authors are finding it very difficult to get public liability insurance and professional indemnity insurance. And I know that one of my clients, she found it incredibly difficult to get insurance. So much so that she was just like, she didn't know what to do. And so we had to figure some things out. And, here in Britain, I'm part of the Society of Authors. We get public liability insurance as part of our membership. Again, so look at the insurances and look at when you're editing, are you getting, if you're putting anything legal in there, are you having a lawyer in that specific area of law? It might be corporate law, it might be medical negligence, it might be family law. Maybe get them to have a proofread for you and actually maybe give you some ideas on how to change certain things. And look at the belief systems that people have around some of these ideas. Because, once someone realizes that they've been lied to, like a lot of the ideas that are coming out, there's a book about, the real Dr. Fauci. Once people realize just how much that man lied and deceived people, they're like, what? And then they're like, oh my gosh. And then that red thread's been pulled. It's like a jumper unraveling. People then start to question, well, he was behind this drug and he was behind that drug, and he was behind this narrative, and if he did that and he's done that, and oh my God. And then people's identity, people's trust in something bigger than themselves start to unravel, and then they start to distrust who they are and their ability to see through things. I know there have been some instances with me as a coach when someone has shown me who they are, and I've been, oh my God, if I didn't see that, how can I be a great coach? Sometimes people are just really good at masking who they are. And remember that in all of this, in all of the costs of writing a book, not just the legal, not just the financial, the energy, but it's your well-being. It's your health and well-being being taken care of. If you've got that support around you, because as somebody who writes about a lot of the stuff I write about, a lot of people don't want to be around that. They don't want to be around me having these conversations. Just like those of us who've got doctors as friends, we don't really want them to be talking about what's happening in the ER or the gynecological department or in the surgery when we're actually in the middle of dinner. Doctors, please listen. There are certain subjects that some of us of a queasy disposition would rather not have over dinner. Again, are you looking at what's going on around you, but taking care of you, because you matter in all of this? I know that a lot of people, when I've written, just even when I wrote Faith, some people were just really offended by some of the things I put, and I'm like, well, that's actual fact. If you're offended by that and it's really triggered your own prejudices, then you need to go work on that prejudice. You need to go and work on that trigger. If it means I have to stand alone, then I will stand alone. I'm not going to placate other people. I'm not going to water down who I am, because at this point in time, I'm 47 years old, and it's taken me a long time to love who I am, to be comfortable with who I am, and to actually find my voice and give a voice to those other people that need the voice. Plus, it's a much quieter life when you're on your own. It's also not so great because sometimes you do get a bit lonely, but you're never alone. And, it is about you honoring who you are and saying, you know what, I know who I am. I know why I am the way I am. I'm happy and I love who I am. And if you don't like it, as my mother would say, there's the door. close it on your way out, or she knows where the door and she'll close it on the other way out. She'll probably slam it, knowing my mother, but there we go. But again, you've got to keep believing in what it is that you're doing. You've got to keep believing in yourself, and you've got to keep trusting yourself, because you know why you're doing what you're doing. You know why you're writing about what you're writing about. And some people may not believe you. Some people may be really resistant to what it is that you're sharing. And it's about finding that way that your voice can be honored, the voices of others can be honored, and all the beings on the planet, whether they're plant, animal, energetic spirits, whatever it is that you want to honor, make sure that you honor yourself in all of it, because without you here, your story cannot be told. So, and sometimes it can get a bit dark, traveling the world researching human trafficking. I've had some dark nights of the soul. I've had some nightmares of after things I've seen, things I've researched, things that I've learnt. And when you learn about those things and you come back and you try and connect with people that you thought were friends, and you just like, yeah, it's been nice, but thank you very much. I have to move on. Some people like to stay in their ignorance or their bubble, or some people just really will not accept what it is that you know. There's another phrase that is going around, I've seen quite a few times now, that some people would gladly believe the lies, but they want a mountain without evidence, but want a mountain of evidence for the truth. So, but whatever it is, you know your truth, and you've just got to keep believing in it. And if I can help, then I would really, really love to. That is all of the slides for today. I'm going to share my screen again. Actually, I've just stopped sharing it. I don't know why I did that. Well, I do know why I did that, but I realized I don't need to. Oh, thank you. Thank you for accepting my invitation for us to grow together through the art and love of literature with a capital L. And this is what I was looking at doing. For those of you who are writing a book or in the middle of it, but want some help with the manuscript, I do offer a manuscript assessment. I can only do one a month. Depending on the book. Amanda's books, I read those, I devour those within a couple of days, and then I read them again. I go through your manuscript 2 or 3 times minimum. Often I'm reading them 4 or 5 times, because the first time I'm reading them for the enjoyment, to get a flow of it. Then I'll be looking at, making some edits in there, making some suggestions. I'll be looking and then doing some research on some of the points that you've put in there. I will also be looking at, you might want to think about this as an additional merchandising, or you might want to use this bit in the marketing. And then I'll be looking at it from a publisher's point of view. So if you are looking for a manuscript assessment, these are some of the different areas, and it's about making sure that I can help you generate multiple income streams, how to position yourselves, who I can possibly introduce you to, and we just look at how we can really make your manuscript into a global success, because I will be bringing into your manuscript all of the opportunities for understanding various cultures around the world, different linguistic systems, religious systems. We'll be looking at anthropology. So I bring all of that into your manuscript assessments. There is nobody else on the planet that does what I do, or have got the experience, the lived experience, which is again very different to textbook experience. Some people might have studied diversity through a textbook, but if they haven't got diversity in their family, in their social group, and then in their life, then are they really the person to do it? So again, I will also read it from a reader's point of view. Is it keeping me hooked? What am I learning? What's the transformation going on within me? So if you would like to look at a manuscript assessment, do let me know and I can get that to you. You can go to dawnbates.com/manuscript assessment. And for those of you who would like to have a 45 minutes free session with me, then please do book into the the session with me. Like I said, they're completely free. They're not a sales call. They're just me helping you get some ideas on some of your on some of the vision or ideas that you've got, help for clarity. Maybe you've got some, things that are blocking you, you're not quite sure how to do that, then do book a session. The next one is available on the 9th of June, and there's 3 available there. On the Tuesday, there's only 2 available. Wednesday, you've only got 1, and on the Thursday, you're quite lucky, you've got 3. So do, just book yourself in there. The notes will be, the link to book will be below this video in the comments, or if you're receiving this by email, you'll see that in the body of the email. So that is it from me today. Nicely done, Dawn, in 52 minutes. With a few tangents and a few moments of not quite knowing where I'm going. It's one of those days. So those of you who have joined me live, we are going to be going into the private Q&A session in a moment. Those of you who are watching on catch up, thank you so very much. And if there is somebody that you know that needs to work with me or needs to watch this, do share it with them. Remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel, where you'll get absolutely all of these and more. If you're not already following me on LinkedIn or on all the other socials that I know that the fabulous Tai has set up and managing for me, then make sure you do. All right, then, much love, and thank you so much for being here with me today. Ciao for now. Bye.